My wife handed me divorce papers on a Thursday. That Monday, I found out I'd inherited $500 million and couldn't tell a soul for 5 years. The Thursday started like any other. I was on a scaffold, 3 stories up, meticulously laying brick on the new community center when I heard her voice cut through the construction noise. The sharp, impatient tone was one I knew well. "Darryl, get down here now." I glanced down. There she was, Keisha, standing on the dusty ground below, tapping her foot. She was in her crisp nurse's uniform, a stark white against the red clay and grey concrete of the site. She never came to my job sites. The dust, she said, would ruin her shoes and clog her sinuses. "Darryl, we need to talk." I secured my trowel and made my way down the scaffolding, my work boots kicking up little clouds of dust with each step. As I got closer, I saw she was holding a thick manila envelope to her chest, a barrier between us. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, reaching out to touch her arm. She flinched away. Instead, her gaze fixed on my hands, caked in mortar dust and scored with the small cuts and calluses that came from a lifetime of manual labor. Her eyes then drifted to my wedding band, a simple gold ring that was now dull and scratched. A thin line of dried cement was etched into the groove where our initials were engraved. D and K, forever. "I can't do this anymore, Darryl," she said, her voice flat, devoid of the warmth it once held. "I just can't." The envelope landed on a stack of cinder blocks beside me with a soft thud. Divorce papers. The familiar insignia of the county court was visible right on top. "Keisha," I started, my own voice rough with dust and disbelief. "I've given you everything. I work my hands to the bone for us." She finally looked at me, her eyes cold. "Everything you have is just not enough. I want more than this. I deserve more than a life covered in brick dust." The gate to the construction site creaked shut behind her as she left. I just stood there, surrounded by the half-finished walls of a building meant to bring people together, feeling my own world fall apart. A power saw whined to life a few yards away. The foreman yelled instructions from the far side of the foundation. My whole world had stopped, but everything else just kept right on going. I looked at the ring on my finger, a symbol of a promise that now felt like a lie. The weekend was a blur of hollow silence. The apartment felt too big, and it would go straight to voicemail. I drove past her mother's house. It was like she had vanished, erased herself from my life as easily as wiping a dusty countertop. I'd just finished a consolation coffee with my cousin Mike when the call came. A Mr. Abernathy from a high-rise firm downtown. He spoke in a calm, measured tone that felt completely alien. He said my great-uncle, a man I'd only met a handful of times as a kid, had passed away. Uncle Charles. He was my grandmother's estranged brother, a mysterious figure who'd apparently made a fortune in tech decades ago. I barely remembered him, a quiet man who smelled of old books and wore tweed jackets even in summer. Mr. Abernathy requested my presence at his office. "It's a matter of some urgency regarding his estate," he'd said. I figured he left me an old watch or a few $1,000s, something to help me get back on my feet. Maybe enough for a down payment on a new place. It was a flicker of hope in a sea of despair. The law office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower that scraped the sky. The lobby was all marble and hushed whispers. I felt out of place in my best jeans and a collared shirt, my work boots looking clumsy on the polished floors. Mr. Abernathy was an older man with kind eyes and a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He sat me down in a leather chair that sighed when I sank into it and offered me a water. He opened a thick, leather-bound portfolio. "Darryl," he began, "your great-uncle Charles was a very unique man. He valued hard work and humility above all else. He watched you from afar, you know. He admired that you worked with your hands, that you built things. He saw it as an honorable trade." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "I was a bricklayer, not a hero. He has named you the sole heir to his estate," Mr. Abernathy continued, his voice steady. "After all taxes and fees, your inheritance comes to $500 million. The words didn't register at first. They hung in the air between us, nonsensical. 500 million? I must have heard him wrong. Maybe he said 500,000. I think I laughed, a short, choke sound. It was a bank statement, and the number at the bottom had so many zeros I couldn't count them properly. My breath caught in my chest. The room started to feel like it was tilting. $500 million. It wasn't a joke. I could give her the life she wanted, the life she said I could never provide. The designer bags, the luxury vacations, the big house in the suburbs. We could be happy. This money, this impossible, life-shattering money, it could save my marriage. There is, however, a condition, a very important one. He leaned forward, his expression serious. Your uncle's will is very specific. You cannot change your lifestyle in any significant way. You must continue to live and work as you have been. You will have access to a small stipend for emergencies, but the bulk of the fortune will be held in a blind trust. On the 5-year anniversary of his passing, the funds will be released to you unconditionally. If you break this rule, if anyone finds out, you forfeit the entire inheritance to charity. The hope that had surged through me crashed into a wall of stone. What? Why? I stammered. Your uncle believed that sudden wealth corrupts. He wanted to ensure you were the man he thought you were. He wanted you to understand the value of $1, the value of work, even when you didn't have to. I left that office in a daze. The city noise, the horns, the people rushing past, it all felt like a movie. I drove back to my empty apartment, the divorce papers still sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left them. I had the power to give Keisha everything she ever wanted, but I was forbidden from telling her. The irony was a bitter pill. I stared at my phone, her contact picture smiling back at me. I couldn't call her. What would I even say? Hey, Keisha, don't leave me. In 5 years, I promise I'll be a billionaire. She would have laughed and hung up. I woke up at dawn, my muscles aching, and went to work. I packed my own lunch. I cashed my modest paychecks. The divorce was finalized. I saw through mutual friends on social media that Keisha had moved on. They went on trips to Paris and the Caribbean. She posted pictures of them, smiling, clinking champagne glasses. Each photo was a small dagger in my heart. She had the life she wanted, just not with me. I DC a commercial for a sports car and know I could walk into the dealership and pay cash for 10 of them. I started my own small construction company with a loan from the bank, not the trust. Building things, making something out of nothing, it was in my blood. Then, the 5 years were up. The call came from Mr. Abernathy, just as he said it would. But this time, it felt real. I had earned it, not just by inheritance, but by enduring the crucible. The money was no longer a tool to win back a woman who didn't want me. It was a resource to build a legacy. About a month later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. There was a long pause. I saw an article online, she said. About you. About a donation you made to the Children's Hospital. It said you were the founder of Apex Construction and a philanthropist. She sounded confused, like she couldn't make the words fit the man she remembered. But how? I can't believe it, she whispered. Darryl, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I was young and foolish. Talk. I thought back to the man she'd left standing in the dust, the man whose hands were never clean enough, whose pockets were never deep enough. I thought of the lonely nights and the sting of seeing her happy with someone else. The pain was still a faint scar, but it no longer ached. No, Keisha, I said, and the words came easier than I ever thought they would. The man you divorced because he was poor, he's gone. You made sure of that. You got the life you wanted. And now, so have I. I ended the call and looked out the window of my office, the one in the same glass tower where my new life began. Down below, the city bustled, a world of concrete and steel. My city. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had truly built something that would last.